And that's if at least one person is proactive, like you
Mm.
can like start something. But if you have two passive people, maybe that's where you have like a third party. You have to like maybe like a church organization have to come in and be like, all right, how do we get these two, um, you know, passive parties to connect?
Mm.
And then like those kinds of accountability relationships where we were open with our struggles, we were open with our joys, um, were, I think, just tremendously valuable.
Kinsen, no, thanks for sharing. It looks like you've got, quite a few environments where you've had and experienced, deeper fellowship with different, um, different people. And I think, even as I was mentioning Rowan with you before, this meta church idea, this this concept. I think, what was his name? Something Anderson. David. Is that right? David Anderson? Yeah, in a podcast that we listened to, just the sense of the church coming into the 21st century with all its different, environments of not just big corporate, but then not just connect groups and cell groups, but the ability just to meet online like we're doing now across, multiple communities, or having coffee, or being able to just be, um, come alongside one another is really, really important. And these are all expressions of church. But Ron, what about you? Like, how are you? Yeah, where would you feel that the most valuable relationships, Christian brother to brother, or environment of friends, have you experienced? And yeah, tell me a bit about it.
Oh, it's really difficult. I think
Jump.
there's a few contexts where I can think about Christian friends and colleagues really making a big impact and it having a lasting impact. And obviously, God was using those people in my life, or opening my ears and eyes, and softening my heart to hear a word from those people. One of them, just very pragmatically, was when I was working at Outboxer. We hired a guy that I knew who went to our church a while ago. And he was a really great salesperson. We hired him as the head of sales, and he would often come in early. And if I was in early as well, he would often talk to me about what he was praying for throughout the day. And I didn't have too many of these types of conversations. That Boxer wasn't where I was working, wasn't a Christian environment, and so there weren't many of us. We got labelled the Christian Mafia in the end. Because we banded together and would speak openly, which was a good thing. But as in not a bad mafia thing, it was a good thing. But yeah, I can just remember clearly that some really great conversations happened early in the morning when we would meet before the day, officially got started, and we were just getting some things done. We'd have some really great conversations about God and what He was doing in the workplace for us, and in our lives, and how He was so devoted to praying for His day every single day, and telling people about that. And one of the other things that sort of struck in another context was how often some of my friends would tell each other how much they were praying for them. Like, give me your prayer points. I want to pray for you today. Like, it's part of my thing. And, oh, hey, I'm just letting you know I prayed for you. So the communication around encouraging one another about praying for people, it happened in the workplace. It happened with some friends from a church context, in a really intense time. It was really, really great. And so that stayed with me. In communicating with other people that I'm praying for them often, and doing it in the workplace when I can, because I think it's not about, hey, I'm praying for you, so I want you to thank me. It's not about that at all. It's not about sharing prayer points, like specific prayer points even. It's just about devoting prayer to God about people, and it sort of encourages them, I think. But certainly that's how I felt, and it's now spurred me on to do it more often, more regularly. And I think it's a good Christian worldview to hold, when you're in the workplace. And yeah, I guess that's probably one example.
No, that's so good, and that's such a you only need one person in that same environment who shares the same faith, and that you can encourage one another and be, that sort of influence and impact. And
and I wouldn't say that the guy was my friend at work, and he's a work colleague. I wouldn't normally hang out with him outside of that. So that's definitely a middle circle kind of environment where we know each other, we connect each other on a certain level, but he's not my inner circle. And I would spend a lot of time with him, because you spend more time with people at work than you do if you're working 9 to 5 or longer than that, than with people outside of that. So I think that's it's definitely good.
No, I think you've touched on something that I am also really passionate about, Rowan, and it's this sense of being open to the fact that God gives us connections and community in multiple ways and facets in the body. Like you said, we might have an inner circle or a tribe or people that we, that are our closest friends, and they're our safe place to go when we are happy, sad, or when crisis hits. And then there are people that he puts in our path that also sharpen, and that we have this common, alignment of values and mission or anything like that. And I feel like in the world that we're in, and the connectivity that we have, there's a way to be intentional about that as well, and to make room for that, and have capacity for that in your workplace, and be searching that out as well. And that doesn't necessarily take up all your margin. In fact, it actually releases more, doesn't it? Like it kind of spurs you to be more on fire wherever you're at. Is that how you feel?
I think so. I think the intentional side of it is definitely important. And in that context of work, it is actually hard to do, because of structure and deadlines and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, and I didn't bring it; it was brung to me. I was the receiver. I was the receiver. I was blessed by this. This was a real blessing for me. And yeah, we did it as much as we possibly could. So yeah, being intentional. Someone's got to do it.
That's it. I mean, if Dave Chen was here as well from CBF, I would really kind of applaud, the ministries of CBF, which is about someone like that has come into your world in your workplace. Like CBF leaders are all about mobilizing people within the workplace, and they lead those spaces. Christian Bible Forum is CBF. David Chan has been part of this community for a bit, but he's pretty busy at the moment, so he couldn't make it. But yeah, and I think sometimes you can just receive that, but then that will spur you on as well. Yeah. City Bible Forum. Yeah. What did I say? I said Christian. Yeah. City Bible Forum. Same thing. Sorry, I was wrong. Yeah. No, that's great. So yeah, thank you for sharing those things. I think I forgot to mention at the beginning as well, like the passage that's really kind of, I feel like it's a bit of our mantra as well, regarding Kingdom Collective, and it's from Ephesians 4, and it has this sense of like the body of Christ in its fullness, not just in a micro kind of capacity, like in a church where we see there's a pastor, there's the intercessors, but across the whole body. And I want you to think of that as I read this. Ephesians 4. As a prisoner for the Lord, this is Paul, then I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. But to each one of us, grace has been given as Christ apportioned it. This is why it says, when he ascended on high, he took many captives and gave gifts to his people. So Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, the teachers, to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Then we will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves and blown here and there by every wind of teaching and by the cunning and craftiness of people in their deceitful scheming. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become, in every respect, the mature body of Him who is the head, that is the Christ. From Him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. I love that passage, isn't it powerful? There's so much in there, but yeah, just kind of want that to lay the foundation of why it's such, such a mission to empower and value every part and every person for what they bring to the body. And I think in this sense of having people in our inner world or in community, that we know each other and that we're able to call that out of each other.
Deb, I will say that on the intentional side, and being on it all the time, I think depending on the circle that you're in as well, doesn't need to always be the context of the push. You don't have to be. You can just be dwelling with people. You can know someone and do life with them without always intentionally making sure this is the way we start and this is what happens all the time, because it can be a bit exhausting, having intentionality, waiting, just being there, listening, doing it over time as well, can make a big difference. And I think that problems don't always get fixed straight away, even though we kind of want to pray for them and really focus really hard on them and try and solve them straight away with God's grace. It just doesn't always happen like that. I would say that that verse is really healthy to hear as well. I think in that context that we should be seeking it out, that we should be seeking out the support for one another. But I guess, depending on what circle you're in and how that works, it's okay if you're not pushing the agenda every day.
Yeah, no, totally. It's kind of, again, as the Spirit leads, isn't it? It's not something that we need to strive to try and fabricate or keep building, but through every interaction, who knows, God can be speaking, God can prompt, and
yeah he is open.
Danny, yes. Hello Danny, do you want to say anything? Oh, no.
Just unmute yourself, Danny.
I can try. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're all good now.
Oh, good. I've been listening in. It's been awesome. I love that I love that verse as well. And what I keep hearing in that is this drive.
Deb, I will say that on the intentional side, and being on it all the time, I think depending on the circle that you're in as well, doesn't need to always be the context of the push. You don't have to be. You can just be dwelling with people. You can know someone and do life with them without always intentionally making sure this is the way we start and this is what happens all the time, because it can be a bit exhausting. Having intentionality, waiting, just being there, listening, doing it over time as well, can make a big difference. And I think that problems don't always get fixed straight away, even though we kind of want to pray for them and really focus really hard on them and try and solve them straight away with God's grace. It just doesn't always happen like that.